Did you know DisneyPlus has a new Cars spin-off series? This thing was only just released in 2022. Cars on the Road, it is called. Yeah, that's where they typically are. So while Up's been getting a spin-off piece with Doug Days, and I guess all of Lightyear was technically a spin-off too, let's see what happens next in the Cars universe post-Cars 3 or something. This is a series with 9 episodes to it, but don't worry, we'll be skimming through the details and ranking how each one does. Kinda reminds me most of the Zootropolis Plus series that released just a year prior to this one. Alright, let's get into things. Episode 1 brings us into the very premise of the idea. Mater, it turns out, has a sister who's getting wedded on the other side of the country. So he's off for a road trip and McQueen is to join him. Not in the easy comforts of Mac, but done themselves to really soak in all the landmarks along the way. I actually somehow missed this episode the first time through, so I thought they were just chucked into the idea mid-trip, but it's nice to get a little bit of context first. Every other character we know is briefly seen and then left in the dust, as our first location takes us to a Dino park, which brings in all the more questions on how the Cars universe works, since there were car dinosaurs as well, apparently. Anyway, each episode has a pretty micro plot, and this time post-establishings, it is that Mater is bored at the museum, while McQueen is much more interested. Mater then falls asleep and dreams about being in the Jurassic Age, and actually, it's a really neat detail here that the dino cars are animated at a lower frame rate. Clearly meant to be emblematic of those old school kaiju effects using stop motion for these monsters as a homage to old style films. I can really appreciate that. Anyway, they're attacked by a T-Rex. Classic. Mater tries to fish McQueen out of its jaws and then he wakes up, suddenly knowing the names of the fossils and running away in fear. Episodes aren't really gonna get any deeper than that, but it definitely feels like, what do boys like? Dinosaurs. Yep, plug in a dinosaur episode first. Make it a T-Rex fight or something. Which is fine. A mid-episode to kick off this low-stakes side story. Now, episode 2 is a whole other reference fest. One big reference fest. We've traveled far enough to reach the state of Halloween. It's rainy, it's scary, and the boys are relegated to a creepy hotel. Not far off from the last time they did Pixar spin-off content. This is all one big nod towards The Shining. Mater is scared, McQueen assures him, and then in the middle of the night, it's McQueen that is haunted by the several ghosts of the mansion. We reference the twins, the writing on the door, the unrealistic just flooding of blood.
That's a lot of antifreeze.
McQueen is swung around by several ghosts, speeds through several dream sequences, and then they're out. It's just an episode of being haunted by ghosts. Until the next day. Feeling like a definition project of a direct-to-DVD little edition. Is it smart? Is it funny? Is it cool? No. Seems about as low effort as you can get on the creative side, if you ask me. And it's not exactly like this entire series is just an afterthought. We'll see some decent highlights later on, but as it stands right now, this episode just passes the time. Easily a bottom tier of the bunch. So let's get into more strange Carsley revelations with episode 3, all about an icy lake and some new territory for what if race cars had feelings with these land speed races. Pushing the limits of racing speeds with modifications and an arena that allows for minimum frictions and maximum scores. And in the smallest form of a joke, it's not the race car that's set up to join the races, but the tow truck instead. These cars are set up with literal rockets attached to their chassis, so anyone can do it with the right equipment. So of course Mater is all souped up for it. Now in this episode they do briefly touch on a hint of something deeper with Mater poking out an insecurity he has in comparison to McQueen.
I've always wanted to go faster and fast and shoot. Right now I got a pretty good shot at it.
It's nice to see the starting of this, as that is meant to be a theme of the whole road trip. It's an opportunity for these two best friends to get a little closer, as well as seeing the sights along the way. The actual premise at the core of this is pretty good, and I think we're getting the startings of its potential here. So anyway, Mater is jet-powered, the guy before him was literally burnt up into a crisp, wow that's dark, and Mater goes speeding off, much to McQueen's dismay. What happens next is a real shocker of a twist. This episode, I kid you not, kills Mater. He was told to watch out for the speed demon. And that's referring to the Cars universe version of the Grim Reaper. Mater has crashed so hard he dies and goes to a kind of Cars afterlife purgatory. The implications of this Cars universe never cease to surprise us all. Mater's soon-to-be corpse now suspended in midair before its likely disintegrating demise. Wow! Mater gets to witness for himself regrets McQueen will have for this second-hand guilt, as well as having to say goodbye to everyone he loves. If it wasn't for doing a flip and sneaking back into his body to get away with it all.
Well, suppose I can let one slip through the cracks.
Huh! And apparently the only reason it worked is because the soul of the speed demon was willing to allow it to happen. Hooking onto the ground to save himself, becoming a legend amongst the speed racers, and just as quickly fleeing out of there. Didn't think we'd be touching on the mechanical afterlife, but road trips can get trippy sometimes apparently. Easily the best we've seen so far. Episode 4, I'm afraid, won't be keeping up with the same levels of hype. It's the Bigfoot episode. There are Bigfoot hunters, McQueen being the reasonable one, of course doesn't want to get too involved, and Mater is... being Mater. Hey, at least their characters are easy to predict, they're so well defined. But they're out looking for a monster of some kind before McQueen is captured by the monster. It's a monster truck. And it twerks sometimes. Covered in moss and clearly not a raging beast, this is a full-on character in Ivy, who just wants to be left alone by these freaky, obsessive hunters. To which Mater hops in, and then joins in the plot to scare them all away, faking an alien trap instead of a Bigfoot scare to banish them away. And that's that. Though something I do really like about this episode is the fact that it permanently affects the road trip for a spell, as Ivy wishes to join alongside McQueen and Mater. She joins the gang entirely. So off they go, all three together, and they'll all reappear in the next episode. It's better than most, but I wouldn't call it the peak of this show. Episode 5 comes around and Ivy, yes, is actually still with them, as they reach the Whale Car Wash. What an iconic American landmark. To which the mossy monster truck is immediately removed with their character quirk. So much for bumps being important to one's character, but we don't talk about the lessons of Cars 2. Mater also goes through and is unfazed. Simple joke. What this episode is really all about is the circus. And what do you know? McQueen is scared of clowns. Clown cars, haha! It's more spectacle from another tangent of the Cars universe concept. I'm honestly baffled there's still more that can be explored in this incredibly simplistic foundation. There's a part where there's an endless amount of cars in a bumper, which again, just so many questions coming out of that. And at the end of it all, there's a big old show. And who better to bring into the act than Ivy herself? Monster trucks are for shows after all, and though she previously has trauma of crushing a poor guy to death in the past, here she immediately is doing it again, but successfully this time. And with that, she's found her place. She sticks around for one bonus episode, and then leaves just as quickly. Which is kinda disappointing, but it's whatever. Kids are here for the main two guys anyway, I guess. And with that, they all part ways on the road trip, and the Whale Car Wash guy gets a post-credits scene. Welcome halfway through the video, subscribe if you haven't already. This practically concludes our unofficial Pixar month, but there's spin-offs we'll be covering from all sorts of other studios if you want to see more once this video is done. But let's get back into it. So come round to episode 6 and Mater now suddenly has some other insecurities to address.
Man, sometimes I wish I was a real truck just like them.
Wait, mate.
Because he's not acknowledged by some other truck, he doesn't see himself as a truck. And then they go to a petrol station. McQueen is off buying groceries or whatever it is that cars need to function that we would otherwise never see or understand since it's never really been shown on screen before. And Mater gets to witness a bunch of other trucks. Now these ones are acknowledging him and all singing and chanting along about being a truck. It's the musical episode. I'm seeing the format here. Sometimes it gets into neon and gets all artsy on the imagery, but also it's an awfully repetitive song. It's fun, you know, just not grandiose. But still, Mater is happy being acknowledged as a truck. He gets some beeps back from the other trucks.
What was that all about?
And McQueen heads off with him, clueless that anything happened at all. It's sweet. You get what it's going for, but it's not the best in its class for what it's trying to do. But now we're somewhat coming to the end of the series. The big overarching story hints are coming into effect finally, as Mater is worried about the speech he's gonna give at his sister's wedding. Cue the movie set episode. Oh, cool! They actually kind of directly reference some theoretical Cars anatomy in this episode, with the zombie brain cars connected to how that one guy said behind the windshield is all just brains for these characters. Or at least I see it that way. So McQueen ends up scoring a role for being a celebrity himself, struggling with a vague line and no direction.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
Along with several takes of being gooped. Your classic parody of Hollywood. Nothing really added by the fact that they're cars. It's just another episode, but it is some eye candy. Mater then also gets a role and does it very well, telling jokes the whole time that guffaws the whole crew, until he stumbles up to the role of president too, where McQueen starts to get jealous and Mater comes out again with a rare piece of insecurity messaging.
Lightning, you're good at everything. You gotta leave a few leftovers for the rest of us.
Which is so nice. I really want to see more of this. There's something there, but this series so far has been nothing but the simplest routes it can write. And in coming to a conclusion, the movie is cancelled and replaced the next day. That's showbiz, baby. Now it's a musical, but not with trucks. And now Ivy's involved. And off they pop, dissatisfied by the cutthroat nature of the Hollywood backdoors. Alright, but hey, it's nice that the credits each time is a different instrumentation of the same theme. That's something. Episode 8 references Teslas, cause we are in the new decade, and in keeping with that, it's the apocalypse now. Second to last episode is the Mad Max episode. McQueen and Mater have reached the point where they're arguing all the time. That's the theme of this episode, only for them to be caught by role players, or criminals? Whatever they are, they're at war, and will happily drag normal civilians into their mess, choosing to sacrifice our boys in the ring of death. But as the two butt heads against each other and rival each other out, everybody's already gone by the time they realize. Because out in the distance is Dust, the rival gang that this band of misfits is at war with. You see the theming? The futility of hostility, or something. The boys see the bigger picture, jump on a rock, and call out to these pointless warring factions.
Throwers and forget these petty squabbles. Right, buddy?
Right, buddy.
Then they war anyway, and Mater and McQueen get out of there before they can be convicted as an accomplice to a crime out on these sandy streets. Or I assume that was the messaging of the story they were going for. Admittedly, I kinda zone out when I see Mad Max references. The actuals are great, but these always make me eye roll for some reason. And now we finally loop around to episode 9, our finale as the two reach their destination. From Mater's prior presidential speech, he's prepared for his sister's wedding speech, and the conflict of today is about how McQueen can't wait to fly home, whilst Mater wants to drive manually all the way back too. And also, he's anxious, getting backfires because of his concerns over his sister.
I don't understand. When I get around my sister, something unexplainable happens to me.
Here she is, living the life of luxury, as was apparently the standard home base of Mater. You never would have thought. That is a joke. A very easy joke. But this new sister character here is seemingly so lovely until you see...
Seeing as how no one ever knows. With you.
And here we go.
With your laid back.
She's incredibly competitive and down-putting. And also, this character is here, connecting some dots a little more to the mainline films for some reason. Mater and Mato, like tomato, I disagree with that pronunciation, go on to a series of competitions, racing backwards, rock, paper, scissors, all the tiny little games you can think of as they try to one-up each other, completely disregarding the whole point of this day being a wedding, until eventually surprise character Ramirez reveals to also do family therapy along with every other career path under the sun. That's that joke. Mater and Marto realize they both desire something that the other one has, the wedding is almost called off. It's not. Mater does his speech, chucks in a little bit of presidential influence in there.
The brainy-headed scourge, or else it's only a matter of time before they blow up the earth!
And McQueen comes to the conclusion that you need to make the most time with the people you care about, so he chooses to manually drive home with Mater too. And with that, off they go, having only done half the journey. Thankfully, they haven't turned it into a sequel series yet. I love Pixar, honestly I do, and spin-offs allow for all the more bonus content to be enjoyed, but this wasn't special. It felt like basic DLC with very little flair actually put into it. It covered all the tropes, relied on references, any jokes there were about as easy as they come, and the messaging was clearly for the very young and impressionable. but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't make something weighty anyway. Our ranking of episodes would go as follows. The worst is Haunted House, then Mad Max, then Movie Set. Coming into mid-content, we have The Wedding, the musical, and the dinosaurs. Then you have Bigfoot, the circus, and actually a good episode in the rocket death afterlife query of Mater almost becoming a mashed meteor. Cars has been stretched out for a long while now. There were already spin-off TV series, and then 3 movies, and the Planes expansion, and probably more too, and this wasn't much to add. And it wasn't trying to be much. But in comparison to the likes of Zootropolis Plus, or even that one Tangled short, this was just content. Simple, easy, skippable. I'll stick to a commute inside Mac next time, or breach a whole new territory with trains, cause that's never been heard of before. But for now, I'd best end it off here. My name's been Daz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.